The year was 1942. Auschwitz-Birkenau had become the epicenter of the Nazi regime's most horrific secret, a mechanized killing operation so vast that even the guards themselves struggled to comprehend its scale. Within those electrified fences and watchtowers, over 1 million souls would eventually perish. But on one extraordinary night in October, for prisoners dared to imagine the impossible. Their names were Kazimierz Piechowski, Stanislav Gustav Jaster, Josef Lempart, and Eugeniusz Bandera. They were Polish political prisoners, men who had witnessed unspeakable horrors and understood with absolute certainty that staying meant death. What made their plans so audacious wasn't just the escape itself. It was how they would do it. The commandant's car. Deep within the camp administration building sat Rudolf Haas's personal staff car, a sleek black vehicle that represented everything the prisoners were not: power, freedom, and the ability to pass through gates without question. The car keys hung in an office that Piechowski, assigned to warehouse duty, had managed to access. But a car alone wouldn't be enough. They needed something that would turn the guards' trained instincts against them. They needed Nazi uniforms. For weeks, Piechowski had been carefully observing patterns. He noticed where the SS uniforms were stored after cleaning, memorized the changing of the guard rotations, and identified the precise 15-minute window when their audacious plan might actually work. He shared his observations with 3 men he trusted with his life, because that's exactly what this plan would demand. The theft. On the night of June 20th, 1942, the 4 men set their plan in motion. Moving through shadows they had memorized during countless forced labor details, they made their way to the warehouses. Their hearts hammered so loudly they were certain the guards could hear them. One wrong turn, one unexpected patrol, and they would face immediate execution. Piechowski picked the lock to the uniform storage room. Inside hung row after row of pressed SS uniforms, each one belonging to men who had sent thousands to their deaths. The prisoners' hands shook as they dressed themselves in the uniforms of their oppressors. Jaster would play the role of an SS Unterscharfer. The others would pose as lower-ranking guards. They stuffed their prisoner uniforms beneath the Nazi jackets, unable to fully shed their identities even in disguise. Next came the weapons room. They needed rifles and pistols to complete the illusion. The lock was more complex, but Piechowski's hands, steadied by pure determination, worked the mechanism until it clicked open. They armed themselves, each man acutely aware of the terrible irony. They now looked exactly like the men who had tortured and killed their friends. The report. But they carried something else too. Something that would haunt the SS for years to come. One of the 4 men had been assigned to work in the camp administration office. There, he had seen reports that detailed the true nature of Auschwitz, documents that proved this was not merely a labor camp, but an extermination facility. He had managed to copy portions of a report that contained evidence of mass murder on an industrial scale, information the Nazis were desperate to keep secret. This report, hidden in the lining of the stolen uniform, would be his contribution to the world beyond the fences. The Nazis knew such documentation existed, and they knew it could never be allowed to reach the outside world. If the evidence spread, even their own population might turn against them. The report had to be contained at all costs. The walk to freedom. At approximately 6 a.m., dressed in full SS regalia, the 4 men walked calmly toward the commandant's car. Their posture was rigid, militaristic. They barked orders at each other in German, their practiced accents hiding the terror beneath. Other prisoners who saw them believed they were witnessing genuine SS officers and felt their stomachs drop, wondering who would be selected for death that day. Piechowski took the driver's seat. The engine roared to life. They drove slowly, carefully, toward the main gate. This was the moment. If any guard looked too closely, if anyone questioned their authority, it would all be over. The watchtower guard saw the approaching vehicle. He saw SS uniforms. He saw confident, authoritative body language. His mind, trained to obey the hierarchy without question, made the connection instantly. These were officers on official business. Jaster rolled down the window and shouted at the guard with manufactured impatience. "Open the gate." "We're conducting an inspection of the outer perimeter." The guard hesitated for only a second. The car, the uniforms, the attitude, everything aligned with what he expected to see. He had been taught never to question his superiors. He signaled, and the massive gate began to swing open. As the car rolled through, none of the four men breathed. They kept their faces forward, expressions stern, maintaining the performance even as their hearts threatened to explode. The gate closed behind them. They were outside the camp perimeter, but they weren't safe yet. The chase, that never came. They continued driving at a measured pace, resisting every instinct to floor the accelerator. Speeding would draw attention. For the first 5 kilometers, they maintained their roles, half expecting to hear sirens or see pursuit vehicles. But none came. When they finally felt safe enough to stop, they tore off the Nazi uniforms and burned them by the roadside, watching as the symbols of their oppression turned to ash. They separated to increase their chances of survival, each man taking a different route toward the Polish resistance networks they hoped still existed. Behind them, Auschwitz erupted into chaos. The missing car was discovered. The stolen uniforms were noted. And then, most terrifying to the SS command, they realized that one of the prisoners had accessed sensitive documents. The report detailing the camp's true purpose, the evidence of systematic genocide, was gone. Rudolf Haas was apoplectic. The escape itself was humiliating enough, but the stolen evidence represented an existential threat. Orders went out immediately. The men must be found and the documents recovered at any cost. Massive searches were conducted throughout occupied Poland. Rewards were posted. Informants were pressured. But the 4 men had vanished. The truth reaches the world. The report eventually made its way through resistance channels to the Polish government in exile in London. From there, it reached Allied intelligence services, providing early documented proof of what was happening in the Nazi death camps. While the information was initially met with skepticism, it became part of a growing body of evidence that would eventually force the world to confront the Holocaust reality. 3 of the 4 men survived the war. Stanislav Gustav Jaster was recaptured months later and executed, but the others lived to see liberation. They had achieved what the Nazis insisted was impossible. They had escaped Auschwitz, and in doing so, they had struck a blow against the regime's most carefully guarded secret. Their escape proved something the Nazis couldn't tolerate, that Auschwitz was not invincible, that even in humanity's darkest hour, courage and ingenuity could triumph over evil, that the truth, once freed, cannot be imprisoned again. The car they stole was never recovered. The uniforms burned to ash on a Polish roadside. But the story of 4 men who dressed as their oppressors and drove straight through the gates of hell remains one of the most audacious acts of resistance in history.